Why do you think the biggest, most successful companies all have foundations?
Yeah.
Because they come to a point, they want to do good with their money.
Yeah.
And I think every entrepreneur, how small or big you are, you can do that. Use your time, talents, and skills. And it's more fun to just give the money. Please still give money to NGOs, otherwise they won't exist anymore. But, the foundation part and really the corporate volunteering part, we have to give more attention to.
Welcome to Women Disrupting Tech. My name is Dirk-Jan Upkes, and on this podcast I give the women who work in tech the platform they need to inspire and empower each other. Join me on a journey into the world of entrepreneurship, funding, biases and role models to discover the strategies for success in the tech industry. In other words, how women can disrupt tech. Are you ready to listen? Hey, welcome back to Women Disrupting Tech, and thank you for tuning in to episode 107. Is there a business case for giving back through corporate volunteering? My guest in this episode believes there is. In this episode, I'm joined by Karlijn L'Ortye. She's a serial entrepreneur, leadership coach, and the founder of Mo the Movement. Karlijn started her first company aged just 22. Since then, she spent over 15 years coaching executive teams and building purpose-driven ventures. Now, she's on a mission to revolutionize corporate volunteering. In this episode of Women Disrupting Tech, Karlijn and I talk about how AI connects employees to causes that matter to them, how MoTime, that's volunteering at work, builds happier, more loyal teams, and why smart companies are weaving social impact into their core strategy. Karlijn believes that there is a business case for giving back through corporate volunteering. She thinks it's a strategic tool that strengthens culture, reduces attrition, and lowers hiring costs. And, as you'll find out, it even creates new business opportunities. So when you're ready to listen and learn how corporate volunteering unlocks leadership and inclusion, please welcome to Women Disrupting Tech, Karlijn L'Ortye. So Karlijn L'Ortye, welcome to Women Disrupting Tech. Good to have you. A question I always ask at the start is how you got into your current job or current position, and floor is yours.
Thank you, Dirk-Jan. That was in a very early age, actually. I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years now, so I really created the role I'm in at the moment. I started very young as an entrepreneur. On the age of 11, actually, my parents gave me the opportunity to make my own candy shop, which was really nice, and taught me about profits and sales and and eventually I went bankrupt. But that was my first entrepreneurship experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I was 22 when I started my first venture. At that time, I was working at a debt collection agency, and I saw a lot of entrepreneurs struggling with their time and time management. We're talking about 2004, 2005. And getting things done was getting up. I don't know if you heard a lot about time management.
Yeah.
So I started a personal assistance bureau, which actually was more of an hours factory, which soon evolved as a training agency specializing in professional organizing. And then as I guided more and more transformations and I dove into technology, I was an early adopter of e-learning. I still have one of the best-selling e-learnings on udemy.com, which was really cool. And later on, I dived into organizational psychology. So nowadays, I'm running two ventures. A startup focused on employee volunteerism, which uses AI. We're going to talk about mostly. And for more than 15 years, I've been coaching teams. And nowadays, there are more management executive teams.
Did you ever discover why you went bankrupt with the candy shop?
As a child, yes, definitely. I ate too many candies myself.
Okay. So the only person who got rid of that was your dentist.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So, what I was wondering about, because you talked about time management, and you talked about working for a collection agency,
Yeah.
and maybe that's also a bit returning a bit on the theme of bankruptcy. What
Hmm.
are reasons for companies to go bankrupt? Because for startups, there's this standard reason like founder fallout and running out of cash. What did you see working for this for the debt collection agency?
Yeah, so we go back now more than 20 years, but
Mm,
I know, I guess my husband is still in finance and he's a credit manager, so I'm still up to the current business. But the most of the times, the companies who take too much risk, they end up with high debts, and they are always optimistic about the next big thing or the next business or the next
mm-hmm.
thing. So even when you're running a business for a long time and you're taking this like good risks, then you can keep into business. But most of the times, the people and the entrepreneurs I talk to at the debt collection agency were people who took too big of risks. And other than, and as you know, in the USA, if you get bankrupt, you really like, okay, you're experienced and you can go to the next one.
Yeah,
And so, in the Netherlands, it's really a cross behind your name.
yeah,
But still, I saw a lot of entrepreneurs who keep trying and trying and trying. And they also got used to the system of the debt collections in the Netherlands, which is really not that harsh than in the USA or in other countries. So
mm-hmm.
you can really go on for a long, long time in the Netherlands, even when you have debts. And I don't think that's a really good thing. As an entrepreneur now for 20 years, I know and I've experienced that sometimes you just have to pull out the plug when it's not working, when it's
Yeah.
not, you're not getting the sales, or that big thing isn't coming.
So
So it's,
how do you
yeah,
protect yourself from over optimism then?
yeah,
Because I recognize the part about being really optimistic.
yeah,
And I think that's also a trait that even founders in the US have.
yes, definitely.
I think you need to be born with that. Also,
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, yeah.
but
A
how
little
do
bit of
you?
a plate before your head.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So, but how do you protect yourself from
yeah,
being over optimistic?
yeah. To be For me, it's being about being
Uh-huh.
reflective on the things you're doing. Every year I make a plan, I reflect on the last year, I do that with the team. And even when I was an entrepreneur for 15 years, I wrote a little book which was called Ondernemerslessen, Lessons from an Entrepreneur, of
Yeah.
entrepreneurship lesson. And one of the most important lessons were like, okay, stop when your gut feeling says you have to stop. And
Hmm.
because stopping a business or stopping something you're doing is the hardest thing to do. It's
Huh?
it's easy to start and keep going than
Yeah.
stopping. And you're smiling, so you know this, and I
Yeah.
think a lot of the listeners know this. So I wrote it down in this book, and I only made 50 pieces of this book, and I
Mm,
gave it to my best friends and
mm,
family and people in business, and they keep saying that to me. I gave that book in personal, and I said to them, please hold me on these lessons as well, because I tend to keep going as well. So you have to have the people around you help you remind this and reflect yourself as well. So yeah, that's the way I do it.
And now you've started Mode Movement, and Mode Movement is a company that uses AI to link companies to volunteer work, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's a matching platform for corporate volunteering. Yeah,
Okay, so how did you come up with the idea to get
yeah.
to?
It's a good question. I was director of an association before during COVID, and this association was the Dutch Association of Board Members and Executive Members, Executive Boards.
Mm,
The NCD, it's called in
mm-hmm,
Dutch, Nederlandse Vereniging van Commissarissen en Directeuren.
mm-hmm,
And as a director, I was able to speak to a lot of board members, a lot of entrepreneurs, and they had their mouth full of corporate social responsibility. But when I asked them if they did volunteering themselves, because I grew up with doing volunteering as this is normal as having a paid job.
Yeah.
So I asked that and I got two answers. The one was, no, I'm so busy. I work 80 hours. This is my responsibility. But I do give them time to, go on and do
Yeah.
some volunteering themselves, or I support the sponsoring requests. And the other answer was the most busy, even the same busy entrepreneur or a board member said, "Oh, yeah, you can ask me for anything." So even if this volunteering thing is like a short one or it's very concrete, then you can ask me and I'll do it, or connect you to somebody who can help you. And that triggered me. I was like, okay, why isn't there a matching platform for causes, for volunteering options
Uh-huh.
for employees? And it's a win-win-win situation because the company fills in their corporate social responsibility. The employee can do the volunteering, which give them a possibility to grow in skills building. And NGO, in this case, is helped by a professional. So that like win-win-win situation, I didn't find that yet when I was a director of the NCD. So there my entrepreneur blood began running and I had
Uh-huh.
to stop this job and I quit it in the beginning of 2023. Used the first year, 2023, to really do the research
Uh-huh.
and guess because I'm a bit tech savvy, as you'd call that, I thought of a hierarchy, how to build this and flows and what's needed, and AI was just upcoming. So from the moment it came up, I was like, okay, I'm going to use this. I'm going to use this for the text. I'm going to use this for the language because that can be a bridge between NGOs and companies. So all these ideas. So I made this team of now five female students
Uh-huh.
who were in a traineeship. They did the traineeship with my company, with MO the Movement. And in that time, we really had to validate the idea and find an investor, of course, because you have to build this. And I did have some money to invest myself, but I had to find an investor. So this team really helped me to get that good on paper and reach out to investors. And during this 15-week program they did with my company, I found an investor, and then we started building on a low-code platform, and we launched last year in February.
Cool. I
Yeah.
have I just because I'm reading a book, The Go Giver, and I just have to ask now. Did you see that people who were actively volunteering, so board members who were actively volunteering themselves, that they
Hmm.
were more successful than the ones who did permit their employees to do whatever they wanted to do, but didn't volunteer themselves? Is there some correlation between success and giving there?
Mm. It begins with how you define success, of course, of
Uh-huh.
course. So it's a financial success, or you're successful as a company in your employer branding, or you're successful in getting the right talents on board. So
Mm-hmm.
let's say we say in a traditional way financial success. And there has been some research on how volunteering really helps you with loyalty and the employee satisfaction.
Uh-huh.
And nowadays, that's very, very important because you want the people to work for your company to be loyal and happy and in a mental way, um, healthy. But coming back to the board member who does volunteering and does not volunteering, for example, the one who only gives time or gives the sponsoring and the money, you see in the company culture of not doing corporate volunteering. So even when they give time, maybe 20%, one of the five, are getting that time and doing the volunteering, but they already did it themselves. They were like, oh, I get some time off to do the volunteering. So that's nice, but it doesn't give you like a new group of volunteers. And even doesn't give you the benefit of the employer branding because they see it's like greenwashing. It's that thing hangs around it.
Yeah.
So when we go back to the other director, the board who is doing the volunteering, they're giving this good example. You see a lot of more enthusiasm, and because they experience themselves, they can tell about it generally, authentically, and then you see people are inspired, and they want to run harder and harder and harder. So they're more connected to the community and society, and therefore they get a lot of more sales opportunities. I know there is a research that shows that corporate volunteering increases your sales opportunities. And I've seen it myself. One of my clients, which is a tech company, they did volunteering for the Plastic Soup Foundation, and they're building an app for the Plastic Soup Foundation at the moment, as I heard. So they turned the volunteerism into a sales
business.
opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay. So in that sense, there is a relationship between being successful and giving
yeah.
time in this case.
Yeah, sometimes I've been asked to make the business case or just show me in like what's the return on investment on corporate volunteering, and
Mm,
then I'm really going into HR. So
mm.
when people have, how do you call it, verzuim? They
Yeah,
this
the people who are not at the job.
at the yeah,
Yeah,
yes, and
at the
if you have
office.
a percentage of 5%, if you can just roam off like 1%, how much will that save? And you will really dive into a few of these employee journey touch points, because volunteering can really help. Volunteering can help in onboarding, in team bonding. It can help when people go on pension,
Yeah, yeah.
and then just to roll out. That's a very good thing.
Yeah, because
um,
then they all of a sudden, of course, do have more time, and then
exactly.
But I
Yeah.
was wondering, does it also help to get, let's say, Gen Z on board because they're much more, aware of we need to do things together, and
Yeah.
also that they're much more, I think, into
Purpose.
purpose and volunteering.
Yes. That's a bias we have.
Hmm.
Let's start with that, because I'm doubting it since I've been in the business now for 2 years. My like I call it the founding team, the trainees.
Hmm.
They were all Gen Z.
Yeah.
So I pitched this. I didn't pitch the idea. They wrote into my company for their traineeship.
Hmm.
But I was like, okay, are you here because you want to do purpose-driven work, or do you want to make a positive impact? And they were like, yeah, we want to contribute to the world only when it's real and authentic and measurable. So they were really clear about this. So, and during this journey of modal movement, I see that Gen Z has two sides. They don't want to work full time
Hmm.
because their work life balance is more important than other generations. Even if the organizations give you 1 day off for volunteering, for
Hmm.
example, AFAS in the Netherlands, you
Hmm.
work for 5 days, and 1 day is for your personal development, volunteerism, etc.
Yeah.
Not everybody wants that because they still want to do the 4-day work week. That's on one hand. And on the other hand, they want to make an impact, but in in a lot of different ways. So not only through your employer, but through a lot of like communities, smaller communities.
Yeah.
And one thing they all, and I think every generation has in common, but most in Gen Z, is that it has to be personalized. If it's not really specially for you and you are special and the center of the world, and I
Yeah.
make it a little bit bigger,
Uh,
then they're not going to act. They're not going to be motivated to do. If
it
it's
has to
just,
match.
it has to match. And really the matching thing that resonates with the Gen Z.
Okay, so let's pick up on that in a minute. One observation you had about the 5 day working week and then having the fifth day for personal development. I know that at least for my girlfriend at ING, they have what is called Mastery Day. So they have 1 day a week that you can spend on whatever you feel like.
Is it in ING as well, 1 day a week?
Yeah, that's how I understand it. However, in practice, this means that you end up working on work, not on volunteering or anything else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes you do, let's say, there is a bit of time to do training. So the conferences, the e-learnings, the skill building will happen on that day because it's that people feel they can defend. So that puts me to my question: how do you look at, or how can companies facilitate this better? That people do not necessarily spend their time on work on those days, rather spend it on volunteering, and maybe all in as a result also I think in skill building, because I did 2 volunteer gigs in the last 10 years myself, and in
Nice.
both I learned a lot.
Yeah.
In one about running a store and about ingredients of bread, which may not
Yeah.
be
More than
huge,
3. Yeah.
but to me it brings me knowledge about food,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
I think is important. And the other, it gave me a sense of what it takes to run sponsoring at an athletics club.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it brings a lot. But before to get there and really give your time, spend your time on this, and even on during work time, because sometimes I get the people say to me, "So it's not volunteering because the people who are doing this, the employees are paid." Yes, and I'm saying yes, it's PVT, it's paid volunteering time.
Yeah.
But without this, they wouldn't do it at all. So let's start with that. So when we get into the companies who want to go on this corporate volunteering
Mhm.
strategy and really want to do it professional, we have developed a maturity model. And in this maturity model, we look at, okay, what stage are you as a company um, looking at the corporate volunteering? And then within these stages, we have 5 topics we touch. At
Huh?
first, leadership. We already started talking about leadership. It's very, very important that the leaders show their intrinsic motivation to do a corporate social responsibility activities, and
So
it's
walk the talk.
walk the talk. That's really what about it, and show it, showcase it. And sometimes they're like, oh no, I don't want to show it, but it has to be inspiring. They have to see that the leaders are doing it as well. So let's start with the leadership. Then the second one is the culture. So, what is the culture within a company? And mostly in finance, what I see, it's like it was more of our business. Every hour you don't spend on the core business, it costs money. So when it's the culture of your hours are expensive and you spend that, hey, you spend the expensive hours on the NGO, and in the end and I see them validating that actually by at the time they for example they spend 10 hours and they're like, okay, my hour rate is 90 hours, so I spent already 900 euros to this NGO. And this NGO is like, I don't calculate like that. So in the second part, in culture, we really get the conversation about how do you think about your time,
Hmm.
valuing your time, and spending that time on your own skill building, like exactly how you experienced it. So it is more than investing just time, it's investing in community and yourself and the company. So that's the win-win-win I talked about.
Yeah. So
I can,
the
yeah,
trick, I think, then is not to, let's say, keep score on the hours you
no,
spend.
no. In
Just
our dashboards,
well,
yeah,
it's a bit difficult to say that to a CFO. I know from experience, but
yeah,
to just say, okay, this will pay back.
yeah,
And sometimes it will pay back in business opportunities, and then it's like really clear. So well, quote unquote, invested 900 euros in volunteering, and as a result, I get to build an app worth
yeah,
900, or I don't know how much they charge nowadays.
yeah. And that is really clear.
Yeah,
Then you're like a no-brainer. Okay, of course you should do that,
yeah.
but it's not always that clear. You have qualitative results and quantitative results. So
Hmm.
the things you can feel or sense, or you can't measure, and the things you can measure. So in this culture conversation, we're talking about, okay, are you more on the measurable results,
Hmm.
or are you more on the, yeah, like the tangible, the valuable results? But that's not all. So we have leadership culture. Then we have programs. If you don't have a clear program, or a few NGOs or activities pointed out, you have to have a range of possibilities. Because if you say you get time off like 1 day every
Hmm.
quarter, 4 days a year, go ahead, then people don't act. You have to make it easy for them.
Yeah.
And and then the program comes in. And even though you have a program, it's not fitting everybody. So we help with that as well. Next one is resources. Very, very important. If you don't allocate resources, and even for doing the volunteering itself, let's dive into a little bit what kind of volunteering opportunities there are. I point out 3 things you do by hand, like painting or gardening or that kind of stuff. The things you do by hand. So, for example, web development, social media content writing, that kind of stuff. And the things you do by heart. So being a buddy or social activities. And there's always the combinations of these. But say those 3 things. For the things we do by hand, you really need a little bit of a budget to help them. Or, for example, you have this baking pancakes days. Then you have to come up with, as a company, with the ingredients for it and the facilitation, etc. So the allocation of resources is very important, and we dive into that as well. And also we have different levels in that. And the last one is communication. If you don't communicate in a consistent way, then people don't know it. This, most of the times it's a big secret, and they don't know what people are doing within a company on volunteering. So in communication, it's very important that you have insights, what people are doing, how they spend their time, what they're learning. We do even have leaderboards because people are a bit competitive. So when we dive into those 5 categories, then we measure their maturity, and then we know if the platform is the solution or it's more first consulting, and then afterwards the platform. So.
Okay, so the maturity levels are more sort of maturity towards being a suitable customer.
Yeah, or more like how are they on their journey to create a movement? And company is called the movement because the companies, the clients, they have to create their own movement. And Mo stands for like you have me time, it's time for yourself, and Mo time is time for another. So when we talk about corporate volunteering, which is a mouthful, we say Mo time.
Yeah.
So how about your Mo time and the way you fill in your corporate social responsibility?
Okay, so is it tied in any way, shape, or form to the, let's say, the UN global?
Yeah, the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. Yes, it definitely has this framework in it on both sides. So the company chooses a few SDGs that they want to collaborate on. They focus on. And when an NGO onboards, which you can do all by themselves, we do have some checks and balances. So all the NGOs on the platform are well checked, and we have an API with the CBF, which is a company in the Netherlands who checks the finance registers of the NGOs. But we also do the check on SDGs, and we help them define the SDGs. For example, we have a really small organization who's focusing on, like, for example, for children. And they're very local organized. They're not working with the SDGs. We have an AI tool which scans their website or their information, and they give the suggestion, these are the SDGs you were working on. And we use that as a framework as well. So an organization can say, okay, we only collaborate on those, or only do volunteering times on these SDGs. And then we show in the platform only those organizations connected to those SDGs.
Okay, so that I think is a nice little bridge into the matching.
Yeah.
So you use AI to do matching, right?
Yeah, at first we do the AI on the language. So you have to imagine it is a matching platform. So you have to have causes, you have to have something to match on. So when an NGO wants to volunteer for a certain project, they often don't know. They know, okay, we know where to aim for, we know our purpose, but how can we use these people from those big companies? Because most of the times they are the corporates where they have these hours defined. Anyhow, so they go onto the platform and they just fill out their website. The system gives a possibility of the text about the organization, and then they fill out a project or something they aim for, and with AI we make it text. So it's really co-creating the text for the cause, for the vacancy on the
But
platform.
okay, so is this sort of let's say a Chat GPT type of thingy where you use similar functionality to create those
Yeah,
texts?
exactly. It's already built in, and that's the first thing, because you have like consistent way of presenting the causes, which
Uh-huh.
is very important, because when you're an employee of, let's say, ING, and you go into the platform, you don't want to just search through a database of now not well defined causes. So
Mhm.
that's one thing. And the next thing, we take out the interests and the skills you need for this cause. And then the matching goes on the profiles of the employees. So when you onboard as an employee, you fill out your interests and your skills, and it's only like a skill set of 24 skills you can find, and we
Do you
take it out.
then sort of scrape the LinkedIn profile, for
Oh,
instance?
that's on our roadmap.
Okay.
I really want to to
Because
build that
that
in.
is an easy way to
Yeah,
look at really skills and also to validate skills that people have, so they don't
yeah.
BS you.
But there is one bias behind that, Dirk-Jan, because you and I, we're an entrepreneurs, and we use LinkedIn, like I use LinkedIn on a daily basis.
Yeah, me
But
too.
when you just dive into the employees,
Uh,
sometimes
they're
they don't
less
use it.
active.
Yeah, less active, and they're not accurate, and even sometimes they don't have a LinkedIn profile. So we started really with this simple onboarding
Mm.
flow, but yeah, there will be soon a day that we implement LinkedIn tool as well. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, because then yeah, I hear you on the that not every employee has his LinkedIn updated and complete.
exactly.
Especially the completeness is a thing.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and there's
Fortunately,
one.
most young employees do have LinkedIn, except for two that I mentioned recently who just said, "Okay, we're not going to be on LinkedIn because we don't think the jobs are there."
There's also a possibility.
Yeah.
There are a lot of biases about LinkedIn,
Mhm.
but yeah, for this platform, like, security is very important.
Uh-huh.
Privacy. So we also want to make sure your employer gives you the opportunity to do volunteering, and you are the owner of the data of your account
Yeah.
in the platform. So
Yeah.
we also give a possibility that to make your own resume of volunteering within the platform. So when you apply for a move, we call every cause a move because you move to your movement. So when you apply for a move, the NGO cannot see your name or profile picture because we want to be very inclusive on this. So
Yeah.
before accepting, you only see the resume or your motivation to do this volunteering, or just only
Ah.
I want to do something.
How did
So
you? Why did you decide to do this?
yeah, that's really something my Gen Z founding team came up with. They were like, okay, I don't want the NGO to see the name or a profile picture because they can be, discriminating on. I don't want this guy or this girl or this,
We only
doesn't
want middle-aged white guys, or we don't want middle-aged
exactly,
white guys.
exactly. So then they get these same volunteers or the same people from their own bubble, and just when we want to break out the bubbles. To be inclusive, only after accepting this employee on the job, you get to see the name and the profile picture and the contact information. Yeah,
Ah, that's
yeah,
cool because that takes out a lot of bias from the on the hiring part.
definitely. Yeah, definitely. And it's in the same time, it's scary for the NGOs because they are a very close community most of the time.
Yeah.
Within, just dive a little bit into this NGO. There are a few levels of volunteers.
Hmm.
You know the diehards who are there every week. They own this association. They own
Yeah.
this NGO, and then we have this layer of people who are doing like on a regular basis,
Uh-huh.
but not from the core. And we have the people who just fly in, and for them they are the lowest on the hierarchy.
Yeah.
So what we really have to know and manage of expectation is that if an employee comes into this NGO, he's not the same. For example, he's a manager at this finance or this corporate. You just go in the ladder of volunteering on the lowest step.
Yeah.
But you're there for one job, and you have to do that job very well. And then we validate this job, or we measure the impact on this job. So yeah, we do a lot of communication about expectations.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but so how does this work? Let's say I'm a director of a company and I have a special skill set. Usually, directors and especially managers are good at managing people. So, how do you match that type of person to volunteering then? Because usually, what their comfort zone at least will be
Yeah.
something similar.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can imagine that managers typically have that type of profile where, yes, you want to deploy them, but you want to use their
Skills.
capabilities to the max.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Because you just said they're starting, let's say, on the lowest flight of the ladder.
Yeah, within this NGO, and they bring all those capabilities and those skills, and they have to, get the trust at first, and then do those things. But they can come there for this move, for this cause. So yeah, I can really imagine why and how you ask this question. And no movement, we are a little bit struggling with this as well, to be honest, because we have a lot of different moves on the platform. As I said, by hand, heart, and head. So sometimes you're not able to set these skills into to use the skills in one move. But for example, this manager is very good at managerial things. He can do team activities. So for example, with the elderly funds, they can go out with a group of elderly people and organize it and manage it and take care of the group. That is one of the possibilities. But since this person is not known by this organization, they don't often trust that person with skills. So it's not about trust and communication and get to know each other. And then, you rise fast in this ladder. It will go fast. But you have to be aware that you're in a new organization. They don't know you. You have to build trust. And that's also a good thing, because you're out of your bubble where people always listen to you, listen between, people that if you
at
listen to this podcast.
Where you get to give some sense of direction to others.
Exactly. So yeah, I think it's more important to get out of your bubble and then develop also the skills you're not using every day. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. In that sense, it's actually, yes, I think it's really good, because they get to experience what the workplace looks like from, let's say, a different perspective than just a managerial one.
They can feel it.
Yeah, you can really, and I would think they can then more relate. Do you see that back in, I don't know if you've done any research on that, but do you see that back in results of companies as well? Because we talked about success, and one of the ways to define success is that your organization works better because there's more empathy between leadership and quote unquote regular employees.
Yes. Yeah. It definitely there's the especially from the US and UK, there's been research on how the culture is changing, and empathy is always mentioned. So when you do volunteering and you really come out of your corporate bubble, you see more of community, and most of the times you do things with groups you don't often work with. You're more happy with your own life. You're more thankful, and for the fact you're more thankful, you have more empathy on people who don't have that much as you do. For example, there was a group doing volunteering for a company, and the HR gave back to me that before a few people asked for a bigger lease car like every quarter.
Yeah.
And after they did the volunteering, they're like, okay, I'm very happy with what I have. I don't have to drive the bigger car. This
Change of
often.
perspective does magic.
Definitely. And it doesn't work on everybody, disclaimer here, but it is doing a lot with like a common sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really believe that you can make a very, very good business case out of it. I even calculated for a company with 50 employees that the return on investment is within a year. So when you invest in good leadership, culture, resources, programs, and communication, and a good platform just to get good insights and use automation for it, then you can get back your money like within 1 year. Yeah.
That's pretty fast. That's a
Yeah.
pretty good ROI period, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. But dear John, there's one thing I didn't mention yet, but it is very important nowadays, and I have to be, I am
Yeah.
optimistic, but nowadays the wind blows from another direction.
Yeah.
And as a podcast maker on diversity, definitely what is going on from the other
Side
of
of
the
the ocean, our
ocean.
friends in the White
So,
House.
yes, it is nowadays for most companies and the bigger companies, the focus on securing their baseline, securing people to stay in the company,
Hmm.
securing their sales processes. So the focus on philanthropy
Yeah.
and volunteering is not that big for now.
No.
It was like last year and the year before, and it's
Mhm.
growing every year. But now we see a dip. Like, okay, so for example, the companies who wanted to start with corporate volunteering, they say, okay, we just move that after summer, or we do that next year,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's not good. It's so short-term thought. You have to be long-term on this
Is
one.
it
But
also about language?
in what way?
Well, the thing that struck me a bit is I had a discussion last week and we talked about this as well. This lady told me, well, there's a lot that is shifting, but not really shifting. So
Mm-hmm.
there's still DEI, there's still
Yeah,
inclusion, there's still room for all kinds of things that create a culture, but we don't emphasize it.
yeah,
So if
yeah,
to your point, I can understand that if you're when you're about to launch a program, they're sort of pushing it out in time. But I would think that corporations who already have this, do you need a policy, by the way, for this, or can you just get started like, hey,
you can definitely get started. And if you're listening and you're an entrepreneur, you have a team of, let's say, 10 employees, you can definitely get started and just reach out. Every municipality has its own volunteering
hmm,
center
initiative? Yeah.
initiative, so you can do it right away. But if you want to do it more professionally and you want to do reporting on it, integrated reporting, which was like the CSRD was also like this very good motivator on doing this.
Hmm.
We deliver a dashboard with CSRD ready information, but you don't have to be on the highest level of the maturity model. When you just start, it's just ad hoc and just go and experience it yourself. And if you want to do more, we can help with the policy and the automation, etc.
Okay, that was my follow-up
Yeah,
question. Do you also help with, let's say,
yeah.
creating a policy or at least a framework around it?
Yes, and it depends on the culture and the leadership team and how important is it, and do you want to have a partnership with 1, 2, or 3 NGOs, or is everybody eligible to just go everywhere, which is validated in the platform, or more than that? For example, you do. I heard you talking about volunteering in sports,
Hmm?
and a lot of people do that on the Saturdays, on the
Yeah.
soccer teams, etc. So, is that volunteering you want to do from your company perspective? I don't know. We have to talk about it. We just have to speak out. And some companies are very supportive, and they do a lot of volunteering in the sports sector.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah. So a policy can really help on this.
Okay. So you talked about, let's say, these initiatives being pushed out in time, being
Hmm.
postponed. Do you also see the funding of it, or not so much?
No, at the moment, we don't have an outstanding question for funding. So I've been talking to, last time was in, when I talked, it was in the end of last year. I talked
Mm,
to a group of investors, and we made some like agreements on when is the next phase,
mm.
etc. So I'm not seeing any postponed investments in it, because
And
I'm not in that
how
phase.
about on the company level, so on the clients?
Yeah, yeah, that is postponed. That is definitely postponed. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
but
But the
also
when
less funding going there because they want
yes,
to quote unquote focus on the business.
yes, yeah, that's happening there. Yeah,
So let me ask you, what if I gave you a mic in front of 100 or maybe 1,000 employers?
yeah,
And they were a bit like, yeah, we're a bit scared of the economics, which I fully understand. Why should they focus on more volunteering right now?
yeah.
Exactly now, even
Exactly now.
when
Yeah,
everyone is pushing it out.
yeah, exactly now. I would just go on the emotional way. I would like, okay, do you have children? Do you have grandchildren? And I would start with, it takes a village to raise a child, and they know that community and society is very, very important. And with individualism,
Hmm,
but nowadays and polarization, we really need each other. So I would go on that way, and I will say like, okay, if you want to do, I want to do good, and you have a company, and you want to be there for your children, grandchildren, even further,
hmm,
you have to act today. Because if you only turn 1%, there will be mileage out from 10 years from now.
hmm.
So just start with giving this time, doing it yourself, act on at least one day a year doing good activities.
Yeah.
And it don't has to be that big, but just start with it and you will experience yourself. So starting today will change the future for your children and for your grandchildren and further, because we need each other. So I
Yeah,
will talk to them.
yeah. And
Yeah,
if I can add to that, there's also still the business case there
there's
that
still, yeah,
your attrition will be lower, your culture will be better, your absenteeism will be lower, your sick leave will be lower
yes,
because people are generally happier.
people want to work with you.
Yeah,
You get the best talent.
yeah,
The hiring cost will be lower. There is a very, very strong business case, but you have to look over this one.
yeah.
Philanthropy is not soft at all. It can be a really good business case.
Yes, and many successful people in the business world are also good philanthropists.
Why do you think the biggest, most successful companies all have foundations? Because they come to a point they want to do good with their money. And I think every entrepreneur, how small or big you are, you can do that. Use your time, talents, and skills. And it's more fun to just give the money. Please still give money to NGOs, otherwise they won't exist anymore. But the foundation part and really the corporate volunteering part, we have to give more attention to.
Yeah, it's also a great way to leave a legacy, by the way.
Definitely, yeah, yeah, and I don't know about you, but me, I'm more thrived by experiences
Yeah.
than, for example, for money. And of course, we do have to have money and our own safety. And
Hmm.
if we low on the ladder, there's no room for a purpose and all those things. But if you had already climbed the Maslow pyramid, then
Yeah.
just give more. Yeah,
Yeah. Sounds like a great place to move to my last couple of questions. I was wondering about one thing. I just have to ask this because you were a director at the NCD. So my podcast is about women in tech, and more broadly about inclusion, but I think it ties nicely into volunteering. Um, how can supervisory board members support the business that they're supervising on both the inclusion and on doing more good
Yeah,
parts.
yeah. In supervisory boards, the only thing you can do,
Yeah.
and it's lesson one when you're doing a governance training,
Yeah.
ask very, very good questions. So you can't do anything in operations. You have to sit on your hands. So
Yeah.
the really thing you have to be good at as a supervisory board member is ask good questions. So first come to inclusion. Look at yourself, reflect on the board you're in. How inclusive is your board? There it starts. They say the tone at the top, and yes, that is really happening. So do you walk the talk yourself?
Mhm.
Is your board inclusive? Then when you look at and the organization you're supervising, then you ask the questions about inclusion. How do you make sure you're not biased on your sales process or your hiring process?
Mhm.
You can all ask these questions, but you have to reflect on yourself constantly. And I
Mhm.
think that is one of the things we said in the pre-conversation
Mhm.
of Boys and Girls Network, and I'm
Mhm.
going to call out it, but
Yeah.
it's not. Yeah, it's still a little bit there, but we are crushing it down. And even every time I say it, I'm
Yeah,
like,
on
okay, I
on a
shouldn't say it.
on the supervisory board level, I think at least for the really big companies on the stock exchange, it's mandatory to have a sort of at least 30% women on the
It
supervisory
is.
board.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is. It is necessary.
Do you see that
Uh,
trickling down, by the way, in
Not
to
yet. No, no. The female board index, which comes out every year, it is growing, but it's so slow. It's going so slow. And they say, oh, we can't find these women, which is bullshit. I'm sorry, but they are there, and they're also doing these governance trainings, and they are a member of the NCD, and you can find it at SER Topvrouwen in the Netherlands. So they are there, but
how can we promote that
yeah,
these women are getting on the bigger boards?
they have to stand out and be visible because like let's say like 20 years ago, like
Hmm?
15 to 20 years ago, it was normal supervisory board you'll be asked for the position. So you really need this all boys and girls network to
Hmm.
be on, and then you are a supervisory board there, and you will ask for the next one, and you're again with that one, and it's like a closed
Circle,
system.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
closed
just a
loop.
circle.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to open it, you have to get into it first and
Hmm.
then open it from the inside.
Yeah.
But to get into the circle, which is still invisible, but it is there,
Yeah.
you have to stand out. You have to be there. You be online in LinkedIn. You have to talk to people. You go to events. You have to do intervision. You have to go to these trainings, and that's really one thing you have to invest in. And even the men do have to invest to want to go into this circle. So and women don't often like to show themselves, like to bargain. How do you say that,
Yeah.
like, about their skills, and I'm
Uh-huh.
like, okay, I
To
can do
brag.
this. I want to be on that board. I'm already seeing myself on that board. Are not like that, and more men are more like that, so they're more in the picture.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what
So,
they can do,
hmm,
yeah, that's the thing. What can they do? They have to search not on their first range. The people are already in the boards, not in the first range of first network, but
hmm,
in the second one.
yeah.
And how you can do that? Okay, you would ask, or let's say you would ask Lisa, and which is already a woman. You're like, okay, the man in the board, like, okay, we want Lisa, and then you ask Lisa, okay, Lisa, if normally would ask you and you were really good fit, but Lisa, who do you know who wants to be in a board as well? So just use your first network to also reach out to the second network, because maybe it's not that easy for you to reach out to Peter as a Karlijn. Let's see. I'm a contact of Lisa. I can't reach out Peter which is already in the board, but Lisa knows me and she is doing advocacy for me. So that's really how it works.
Oh,
So
so
as a
women advocating for women is important. That's what I'm hearing you say. And second thing, what I'm hearing, I was just wondering, would it help to, and this of course has to do with the rosters that are there because people can only be renewed so many times and then they need to be replaced, but those replacements also follow a schedule. But is one of the tricks also then not hiring one female supervisory board member, but two at the same time, if you can, of course.
Yeah, definitely. And it's not only gender. I
Yeah,
think,
but I'm now
yeah,
making
for
it
inclusion.
just
Yeah,
for the ease of the
yeah,
conversation. But
yeah. Of course, of course. Not only when you think, okay, we reached 30%, or we only have one woman. It's not It's not finished. Inclusion is not finished until everybody says, okay, I'm here, I'm seen, I'm heard, I feel at the right place. You know, I think, and that's another thing in supervisory board, you have to have a diversion, and it has to be, how do you say that? It's more schuurt. That
yeah, it has to sort of there has to be a certain level of conflict.
yes, to be critical and
Yeah,
to be sharp. And if you all like each other and you're from the same bubble,
yeah.
then it's not going to work. And that is really when the shit is happening. I've seen a lot of cases which were in the news as well on supervisory boards who didn't be as critical as they had to be. Um, on their board. So therefore, inclusion and diversity is very, very important.
Yeah, also on supervisory boards.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my mission is to make tech or inclusion in tech rather the new normal by 2032. What would be your advice to get there?
Wow. Yeah. Of course, this podcast is very important.
Uh-huh.
Just keep spreading the word about it. Um, yeah. So you are advocating for women and for
Yeah.
more diversity, and which
Mm,
is very important. And just look around for the people who do it as well. So,
mm.
and I think we all do it in some sort of way. Yeah, I think, and I really hope that we'll reach that by 2032. But it takes like a generation. I think it will at least take 70 years, but we're halfway. I hope so.
Yeah,
I hope
well,
so.
there's, let's say, I know it's BHAG that at 2032. So I was wondering about one thing, yeah, because you have a bit of experience in terms of matching with using AI. What
Mhm.
role can AI play, you think?
Oh, yeah, I think AI can really be a creative sparring partner. So, for example, one of the benefits of having an inclusive team,
Huh?
a diverse team, sorry,
Yeah.
in a diverse team is that you have several ideas, and AI can come up with different ideas you wouldn't think of,
Uh,
and then talk about those ideas or scenarios that really can help.
mhm.
Um, on the other hand, it has to be human centered, and decisions should be human centered all of the time.
Yeah.
So when we depend too much on AI and we can't come up with our own ideas, then things are not going quite well.
No, then
So
there's bias kicking in, which
yes,
is
yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, there are like you have got upsides and downsides on the AI thing, but we have to, have the conversation running, and you really have to think about, okay, is this decision or is this scenario we're talking about human centered, or is it just given in by AI with these biases?
thank you, Karlijn L'Ortye.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed our conversation. If people want to learn more about you and about the movement, where would you like to send them?
Yeah, let's go first to LinkedIn, which
Yeah,
we love this
yeah.
platform. Yeah, I have everything on it. Just send me a message or a connection. And then, yeah, if you have any questions, just let me know. Karlijn at modemovement.nl, and then I'll answer them and answer them.
Okay. The website is probably modemovement.nl.
Yes, it is.
Cool.
Thank you.
And we'll include those links in the show notes. Karlijn L'Ortye, thanks very much for an amazing conversation. Listeners, thank you very much for listening. And until the next episode, keep being awesome. Well, that's a wrap for episode 107 of Women Disrupting Tech with Karlijn L'Ortye on how corporate volunteering unlocks leadership and inclusion. Karlijn and I hope that you found our conversation as inspiring as we intended it to be. And if you have any questions for Karlijn or for me, please leave a comment on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube. I do read all of your comments. If you want to learn more about Karlijn or Mode Movement, please check out the links in the show notes. You'll find the show notes at womendisruptingtech.blog/episode 107. And this link is also in the description. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a rating or a review on Spotify or Apple. Leaving a rating or a review helps new listeners find the podcast and supports my guests by giving them a bigger platform. If you're a regular listener, make sure you follow Women Disrupting Tech on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and YouTube. Following Women Disrupting Tech is a simple, zero-cost way to support Karlijn and my other guests in making inclusion in tech the new normal by the end of 2032. You can also follow Women Disrupting Tech on social media. On LinkedIn, you can follow us at The True Story Company, and on Instagram, YouTube, and Substack, we're at Women Disrupting Tech. On Substack, you'll find in-depth stories and behind-the-scenes insights from each episode, plus the trends that I've spotted across 100 plus conversations so far. So don't forget to subscribe on Substack if you want to go deeper on Women Disrupting Tech. Finally, if you'd like to connect with me directly, please reach out via email dirkjan@womendisruptingtech.blog or find me on LinkedIn. Just search for my name. With that, I wish you a wonderful day. I hope to see you in the next episode. And until then, keep being awesome.